Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's video. In this week's video, we're going to continue on with the Dead Nation style shooter, or the Nation of the Dead. And just before we continue on, I just want to say that a couple of days ago I posted a quick minor update video of just one or two changes that I've made, which I'd recommend that you do watch so then you can follow on exactly up to date with where I'm at. One thing you'll notice is we're in Unreal 5, and I do talk about changing your project to Unreal 5 if need be. If not, I mention about some changes that you need to make, like adding plugins and stuff like that. There is another minor blueprint change as well, so it is worth your while just checking that video out before you continue on with this. It's not that long, it's shortish, but yeah, that's that. The other thing is as well, I might not sound it at the moment, but I am slightly getting ill, so if I need to sort of pause the video, if there is any sort of like brief moments where I abruptly stop speaking and then continue, it's probably where I've edited out a cough or a sneeze, so I do apologise for that in advance. But with that being said, the first thing that we're going to tackle here is I've created a shotgun particle effect. So we're just going to talk through that. The new particle system in Unreal 5 is still quite new to me. I've only looked at it really to make this particle system so far, so I'm going to try and keep this very brief as well. I'll talk about the bits that I understand, but I'm not going to try and dig into other bits and pieces just because I don't know enough about them yet to know that I'm accurate enough of what I'm telling you. And I don't really want to give you bad information. I'd rather just admit that I don't know it. Right, so with that being said, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a shotgun particle system. Now, I'm not going to delete my original system. With this being new to me, if there is something that I may forget or if it doesn't turn out as right as I go through this tutorial, I probably will have to check that and just fill in the blanks. But again, that's because it's still quite new to me, but once it's bedded into my memory, I'll do more of a detailed video. Anyway, so let's start. So content browser, we're going to open, we're going to right click and we're going to go to FX. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create an emitter first. Now the emitter is what's used in the system. So eventually we will create a system, but we'll make essentially a particle effect is made up of emitters. Now that can be one emitter, two emitter, 10 emitters, what have you. So you can imagine like a gun firing may be sort of 3 emitters. There might be a bullet, some sparks and some smoke. That's 3 different emitters, and you can sort of layer these up and make them however you want. So I would recommend that you create an emitter first and then create systems from it. But there is nothing stopping you from pressing Niagara system here, which will allow you to make the emitter on the fly. But I think having a collection of emitters is probably a better idea. So I'm going to select emitter. Now this new emitter system, you can create, you can select you're making a new one, and it gives you a bunch of templates. And the descriptions are roughly okay. They tell you just enough about what it's about to do. So a looping fountain spray. What have we got here at the top? I think my scroll wheel's broke as well. It emits the directional burst, which emits a burst of sprites in a specific direction. Now this is the one that I started with, but I found that the particles were just a little bit too small for what I want, so I ended up using a fountain and then just editing it a bit more down to what I want. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to select fountain, and I'm going to press finish, and I'm going to call this shotgun emitter. So with my shotgun emitter created now, I'm just going to double click it, and that's going to bring us into the Niagara particle system. I'm not 100% sure how it's pronounced actually. Is it Niagara? Is it Niagara? I'm not too sure, but I'm probably going to call it the Niagara system. So we're in the editor here, the particle system, and there's lots of new things. I'm not going to talk about what's on the screen again, because I don't want to get myself stuck in a position where I don't know what I'm talking about. But there's lots of things going on. So on the left here, you've got the preview. We've got like a little parameter window here, which you can control the data. You've got your timeline down at the bottom. with a few other menus. You've got like the log, some curves. Then in the middle here, you've got like you might be familiar with it, it's like a blueprint style. Actually, it's more like the material editor, this. But instead of nodes, you've just got these different sort of attributes that you can add. But we'll get to this in a minute. And I've double clicked that and you can see the blueprint behind it. But with the shotgun emitter node, this entire node selected, you've got a few bits and pieces down the side here, which is basically everything that you can see here all in one long column. So you can see the different menus here, emitter spawn, emitter update. It really is just everything that makes your emitter possible, or your particle, as you can see, with this node selected, will all be listed here in the details or under selection. So if you don't want to go through each one of these individually, what you can do is just select this node and you could scroll through it bit by bit, which to be honest I'm probably going to do, because I'm not going to get lost in a minimized menu, but I am going to delete some things. So keeping it brief, let's get through it. So at the moment we've got this particle system which starts and it's spawning all these particles, and they're essentially being fired up into the air, and then gravity is sort of taking dominance on them and bringing them back down, and that's really it. Now they have you may notice that as they go up they sort of slow down. That is partially because of gravity, but also they've added drag, which is resistance. So because I'm actually going to want them to continue going, I don't want either drag or gravity. So what you can do is, if you just want to disable it, you can just untick it, and you'll see that now these will just continue bursting upwards. But you can see that the rate that they're coming out of the emitter, and as they continue along, some of them are getting slower and some of them have not, and that is the drag that I mentioned. So you can untick that as well, and the velocity of it should be the same throughout the animation. Now again, because I don't want them, I know for a fact that I'm not going to use them, I'm going to delete these. So I've deleted gravity and drag, and now I've got this fountain bursting out at the top. So the thing that I want to do now is I don't want my emitter to shoot up into the air. I want it to shoot forward, so I want it to go in the x-axis. So I'm going to find, I think it's initialize, it may not be, it's probably, here we go. So add velocity. So essentially without velocity, the particles kind of will just accumulate in a ball, and then by adding a velocity, we're essentially saying go in a specific direction, and with that direction we can also specify how they're going to come out. So the velocity mode here is set as in cone, so that's what's giving it this sort of V shape, and you can determine how wide of a V shape you've got here with the cone angle, but you don't have to stick to a cone. You can have linear from a point, but cones are a pretty good one, because we are going to have a blast and it is going to be in a sort of like a cone shape, but I'm probably not going to have the spread quite as wide as it is here by default. So we are going to change that, but what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to add this to my character and just get a sort of in-game visualization of what it looks like. But just from a general point of view here, I can see that I could probably do with half in this. So I'm just going to take this straight down to 15. And for me, that's a little bit better for a shotgun, because to start with, everything's going to come out the front and then it's going to break up towards the end, and that might even be too wide again, depending on the distance that it's going to travel. The other thing is we've got velocity speed. So these are all coming out at different speeds. So there's a minimum velocity and a maximum velocity. So any particle at a given time is going to come out anywhere between 500 and 850. Now there probably is going to be some slight variance in a shotgun shell. Some shell pellets are going to come out minorly quicker than others. I don't think it's going to be that much that you'd probably notice it in a game. that's completely up to you. You can either change these. I would probably consider keeping these a little bit closer together, or if you want to, you can click on these little down arrows on the right hand side, and you can set it to sort of different values. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to reset this to a default value, and what that's going to allow me to do is just set in a single figure, probably 1200. Let's have a look. Yeah, that looks okay. Now, the other thing is, actually, let's change the direction. So the other thing is as well, my apologies, at the moment this is being spawned in the Z axis, so up in the air. We don't want that, we want 0. And by the looks of it, this is actually defaulted to forward, which is the X, but just to make sure that that is going to be in the X, I'm just going to put 1 on the X, and that should be fine. Let's have a look here. What have we got? We've got a speed fall off, so it decreases the added speed as the direction deviates from the cone. So that just means anything that's outside of the sort of designated cone area, because these are quite random. How much should that speed? So if anything goes outside the bounds of the cone that are kind of like projected, the speed should halve by the looks of this. What I'm going to do is change the colour to something that's more sort of pellet shaped, or at least explosion shaped, coloured, sorry, not shaped. So where were we? So here we are under initialize particle. So as the particle is spawned, it's given a few different things. So there's like life, colour, position and stuff like that, and mass. Colour is something that I just want to change for now, so I'm just going to change the colour to sort of like a yellowy orange. Let's just move this a bit more orange. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking I want to go a bit oranger. Yes, something like that. So that looks okay for me. Now if you want to, you can change the colour over time, or over its life. So under particle update, I will show you that actually every one of these menus, emitter spawn, emitter update, particle spawn, particle update, and renderer, they all have these little plus buttons. And if you want to add something, so let's say color, you can scale the color by speed. You can scale the color by whatever you want, and you can set these values up however you want. So let's get rid of that. What you can see is if you go into the scale color, what they've done is they've added a float from curve. Now the curve is over the time frame, so there are templates here that you can click on and you can see different things, but essentially what you can see here is whatever color you've set, and just to clarify, this is RGB and alpha separately. So what you can see here is the RGB itself is sort of 111, which is representing whatever color you picked in the initialized particle will be 111, and as you change these figures, you'll get slightly different things. But the scale alpha, now the alpha is just its opacity, how visible it is. So what they're changing here is at the beginning of time when the particle is first spawned. Now from memory, this emitter is by default set up to last anywhere between 1 second and 2 seconds, I think, which we can change. So when this is first spawned, it wants the value of its alpha to be now, so you'd expect that if you was to change these values of maybe the X, so what numbers have we got here? Let's just, I'm just going to move some of these out. So that's blue. You can see that this is actually changing colour as we're doing it. And then I change the green as well and leave the red up at the top. I feel like we're going to get, so yeah, we've got more of a red tint to it now. And I feel like that should start redder and end up obviously less red as it gets towards the end though. Now I've not really played with these too much, so that's something that you can do. I'm just making you aware that you can change these for like curves, and you can change these. I think the alpha works a lot better, but let's just reset that back to its default, so it's 111. It's still that that yellow color that we picked from before, but you can adjust it. So you can delete that other scale color because you don't want to duplicate it. Right. So what changes do we need to make now? So let's just move back over here a little bit. So at the moment, this is looping forever, and it's just pushing out as many particles as it possibly can, which is going to make for a very interesting shotgun. So what we could do with doing is changing possibly the spawn rate and how this emitter reacts. So again, you can either select the emitter and go through each bits and pieces, but under emitter state, you can see here we've got some sort of loop behaviors. So we can have it loop infinitely, for how long, and sort of what its response is and cycle life and stuff, all that sort of stuff. But what I'm more interested in is I don't want it to be infinite. I want it to loop once. And my duration, actually, because this is going to be almost an instantaneous bang, and then all the shots are going to come out, I want this to be like 0.1. So you can see now that we're just getting this little puff of particles just bursting out of nowhere. See if I can get a bit closer. Whoop. Yeah, so in that 0.1 second, we're spawning 90 per second. So in 0.1 second, we're spawning a few. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to spawn rate, and I'm just going to boost this spawn rate up to maybe 250. Let's see what that looks like. So if I move from above, bang. Okay, so that's not a bad spread at all. You might want more, so let's go for 300. See what that looks like. Did I press enter? Yeah. 300 looks okay. So essentially, I guess because your loop duration is 0.1 and our spawn rate is 300, that's going to be 30. So it's going to be a tenth of what our spawn. The amount that's spawned is going to be a tenth because of our timing. So I think at this point, what's probably going to be beneficial is if we save this, create a system, and apply it to our character, so that we can actually see what it looks like in the game. And then if we need to make any final adjustments, we can. One thing that I will just mention before we continue, if you've never used this particle system before, what you've got is you've got the sprite renderer. So the sprite renderer is, if I press pause, so I need to try and get a better freeze frame than that, to be honest. So I don't know if you can see here, but each one of these particles is actually this default sprite material, and it's kind of like a soft edged sphere. Now you're probably going to want to customize this yourself, so what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make some of these materials yourself. Now this one obviously looks particularly complicated. You probably want to have a look online and see somebody who's talked about making particle materials. I don't have a video for that because it's two things that I'm not very good at: particles and materials. So hand in hand, that's probably not going to work for me. But essentially, you can make them with nodes like this, or you can make them with textures. You just need to make sure that you're adding that like particle color node, so that when you do change it within your particle system, that actually applies. Yeah. So just to make you aware, you would need to change your sprite shape. Let's say if you wanted to, instead of having sort of like you wanted sparks to come out with it, you'd probably want something more of like a star-shaped sprite to fire out to be your sparks. And I think there may actually be a default one like that. There's the default particle from like Cascade, but yeah, just so you're aware that your particles are actually rendered by this sprite renderer, and if you want to change sort of shapes and stuff like that, you would need to do it with that. But unfortunately, again, I don't have a tutorial on going through that, but I'm sure there is plenty on YouTube. Anyway, with that being said, let's apply this to our character. Okay, so go back to the third-person example map, or you open up your content browser, and I have mine docked here at the bottom, but I believe it's Control and Space will bring it up. I'm going to go back to my third person BP folder and my blueprints. Now what I have done is we've been rocking with the third person character now just to test out these particles, just so I didn't create any crazy damage to my blueprint. What I actually did was to create a duplicate. So I created a duplicate and called it particle character. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm actually going to adjust my third person character now, just so we can follow along together. But it wouldn't hurt to make a duplicate just for testing things. But if you do that, again, I do refer you back to the update video that I posted a couple of days ago, and it'll allow you to use any character in your game, because when we created the follow camera, we did hard code in the character's reference as third person character, whereas the update video shows you how to change that to work with any character. So there is that. So anyway, well, let's open up third person character. Just double click and get that loaded. Now, luckily this blueprint has opened right next to where we want to be, which is the weapons, but if you haven't, just move and get over to your weapon line trace. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these nodes and give us a little bit more space, and I'm going to move these back as well, just to give us a bit plenty of room everywhere else. Let's move that like that. Okay, so actually before we do this, we need to create a system. So this shotgun emitter is currently just an emitter at the moment. So what you want to do is your shotgun emitter, you want to right click, and at the top it says create Niagara system. If you click on that, it'll make a system with exactly the same name as your emitter, just with system at the end. And you don't really need to open this, but I will show you. Essentially it's like the exact same emitter that we've just created, so it won't look any different at all, except now you've got this system node, which will allow you to do more things to do with the system as a whole. And just so you are aware, you can right click in this blueprint area sort of space and add multiple emitters together, and like I said before, you can sort of like start chaining these together, so you'll see like a blue beam, but right at the beginning you'll get a burst. There you go, that comes out. Now, and that's because of how we've set this up. So this is how you'd layer things together. So you might do your burst and then a smoke and then some sparks and some other stuff. But for now, let's just delete that. And again, you don't need to make any changes to this. If you do need to make changes to your shotgun, change your emitter here and hit apply, and that'll apply the changes to your systems. Anyway, we've got a system there, so let's go back to our third person character now. So what we want to do is when we fire the shotgun, we want to create, and now it's not particle system anymore, it is spawn. Sorry, it's probably spawn. Spawn Niagara system. Oh, so here we go. So spawn system at location, and that's exactly what we want to do. So we want to spawn a system, and which system do we want? We want the shotgun emitter system. The original system is the one that I created before, but hopefully this should be very similar. So we've got shotgun emitter. Now where do we want to fire from? Now if you have followed my tutorials, the weapons that we have been using are skeletal meshes, and in the skeletal meshes in the skeleton there is a socket called muzzle, which is right at the end of the barrel. So we are going to get location. No, we're not. We're going to get socket location, which is here. And if you are not certain, what you can do is select your weapon, click on this little browse button, open up your weapon. Now typically it's got a pink line, that means it's a skeletal mesh. When you open it up, if you've got a skeleton tree down at the side, yeah, you're probably good to go, and you just want to find the one that's closest to the end. So like I said, for me, I've got muzzle, which is at the very end. So I'm just going to, on the right hand side here under socket name, I'm just going to select that, copy it just to make sure there's no spelling mistakes, close that, and in the socket location it's going to ask for a socket name. I'm just going to paste muzzle in there and drag that into the location. So hopefully that now will spawn from the very end of the weapon, which is where I want. And the other thing is it needs to know what rotation to take. So what we can do is from the weapon is get world, spell that right, get world rotation, and then we can just plug that straight into that. So hopefully now, whichever way the weapon is pointing in the world, our particles will also be pointing in the same direction. Scale you don't need to change. You want to keep this at 111 unless you've got some bizarre reason that you'd want the scale to change here and not in your emitter. Okay, so now we can just test that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press compile and just make sure that we don't have any complaints, which we don't. So now I'm just going to press play and see what we get. Now if you press F and switch to a shotgun, you'll see now that you get a burst, a particle burst. Okay, that's pretty good. I like it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to turn off my line trace visibility. So under the shotgun, under your line trace, for duration is currently set. I'm going to set that to none. And I'm going to hit compile and I'm going to go press play. And I'm going to switch to shotgun and I'm going to run over to my AI. And I'm just going to see if that looks pretty good. I like that. Now, I do have some problems here. Now this is completely up to you. In some games, the sort of shotgun shells do fade out like that. Some continue going till they hit something. Some don't even travel that far. So I'm going to leave this up to you. But if you do want to change this, and I believe in my example, I actually enabled collision, which I'll show you. So under the which one is it? It's not the state. Oh, it's initialize particle. So you've got a lifetime here. So at the moment this has got random. So each particle that spawns has got a random lifetime, anywhere between 1.4 and 1.7. If you can have all your particles set to a constant number by just pressing the reset, as I just did. Let's get out of that and reset. Or you can change it to anything between 1 second and 3 seconds. So not all particles are made equal. Let's press play and let's check what this looks like. So some make it all the way, and some don't. If you want to go for that, or back to the emitter. What I'm probably going to do is change it from random to direct set. And I'm probably going to set all of my particles to 2 seconds, for example. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, change. Okay, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Now they are still fizzling out just a little bit there over the time, which I did press apply. That's correct. Let's just see if the life is affected by anything else. And here what we're doing, we are scaling over time. Okay, so this is another thing as well. Our alpha is being changed after 1 second. So actually what we might want to do is we might want to change this timeline to 2. Oh, what happened? What happened then? Okay, I'm gonna go to scale color manually. And here we go. How do we zoom to fit all? There we go. So at 0 time it's full alpha, and at 2 it's 0 alpha. So I'm going to press apply, and hopefully now my particles only start fading out at 2 seconds. Okay, so that's much better. They all do have a slightly random life, but I'm not too sure about that. That's actually I feel like that's a bug for me, so I'll be looking into that. What I did do though, just to make it a little bit more interesting, is under the, I believe it's update, I typed in collision, and I got collision. And then with collision, what the few things that I did change was I set the bounce to 0 because I don't want my particles to bounce at all. And also I changed the friction here to 1, and also friction during bounce to 1. Now I know I've not really turned the bounce off, but I've told it 0 bounce. So I've also just made sure to sort of cancel it out with friction as well. And then the other thing that I've done is I've just ticked the advanced aging. Now essentially what this does is when a particle collides, its lifetime is then increased not increased, sorry, decreased. So it's advanced aging, so my particles age. So the intention for this is when the particle hits something, that it dies very soon. It runs out of life very quickly. So I just bump this up to like 25. So if we hit apply with that and then go back, and let's just switch to shotgun. So you can see now that when it hits something, some of them stick just for a short while and then just disappear. Oh, at an angle it actually does ricochet off just a little bit. So you can just play around with this. Collision might not even be an effect that you want. Collision might be a thing that you want, but it's completely up to you. You can sort of make this how you want. I've just looked at the length of the recording time, and I've noticed that this is seems to have gone on quite a bit now. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm probably going to turn this into like a part 1, introduction to particles, but with the effect that the second part will sort of zip through SMG a little bit quicker, just because I don't need to talk through some of them nodes. Or things in the emitter as much. We can just work through it and build it out. And then in the second video, because I'll have a bit more time, I'll include other things sort of like reloading, maybe like an ammo counter and all them sort of things. So if this video was helpful, please consider giving me a like. If there's anything that any issues you've run into, please leave a comment down below, or even just to leave your appreciation. You know, I appreciate every comment that comes through, and I do respond to every comment. Alternatively, if you want to get in touch with me, there is the Discord channel. The social links are down below. And if you want to continue watching with either this series or any of the other videos that I might release, please consider subscribing. And if you want to get notifications from me, there is that little notification bell at the side of the subscribe button, and that'll tell you when I post a video. I do post consistently every Sunday. There may be the odd time that I forget, but it's always around Sunday. But that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in either next week's video, or potentially I might post sort of part 2 on Wednesday. Please not hold me to that. I'll update you in either the Discord or on the YouTube community page. But thank you, and see you later.